Also, you can work in any order you want. I agreed to kind of host this program. I'm not really teaching it the way I would normally teach a class. I'm just hosting it. So what I'm doing is I organized the blocks so that they had things in common. So most of the blocks that we were doing this time for the first month had some kind of a clip corner on them. So I put them all in one month. For something that has a flying geese, they're kind of all in one month. So I've sort of separated them out. But if you want to work from number 1 to number 50, that's perfectly fine. If you want to work from 50 to 1, that's okay too. If you want to only do the odd number blocks, it doesn't really matter, okay? I'm just facilitating it the way that it seemed to make sense for me. And then I'm telling you what I'm doing. So if you watched today's video, you saw that in some of the blocks I said, well, rather than cut this into two pieces, I would do it as one piece. So this block that's right here, this is the first block. So with the striped fabric that's right here, instead of cutting that into an individual block and sewing the same fabric back together again, I just cut it as one piece. So that's the kind of what I consider hints and tips that you would see in the videos that we're doing. All of the cutting instructions are actually in the book. It tells you what size to cut, and then it tells you what to do to it. In the very beginning of the book, there are some instructions that say, when I tell you to do this, this is what it means. So you refer back to those two pages. One is for the 8-inch blocks and one is for the 12-inch blocks. So you want to make sure that you know how to use the book. And if you read the beginning pages, it explains how to use the book. Okay? So you can just go ahead, read those pages, and follow those instructions. So you noticed with this block here, I think she called this one Lincoln's platform. You might notice churn dash, you might know it as monkey wrench. If you watched my video, you know that I changed the sizes on it because I wanted this to be an 8-inch block because I'm going to do my entire quilt with 8-inch finished blocks. So in order to do that, I had to change the sizes to get this to work out. And it's perfectly fine to do that, but I told you what sizes I changed mine to. So I'm not going to write you instructions and copy all that down. Just watch the video and follow along is really what it is. This is Barbara Brackman's book. It's Barbara Brackman's instructions. And I don't want to infringe on her copyright in any way or usurp her book. So I'm just doing it along with you, and I'm going to tell you what I'm doing. And if you want to do it my way, you can. If you have a better way to do it, share it with everybody. It's okay with me. All right. My blocks are on the wall, and I want to talk to you a little bit about them. First of all, you might notice, see this one? It looks better on camera than it does to me in real life. In the video, you saw this one. Okay. So stick that one there and that one there. So this is the one that you saw in the video. And then this is the one I remade, okay? I really wasn't happy with these dark corners that are on there. Seemed like a good idea at the time, but once I got it made and I had it up on the wall and I had a chance to step away from it, I'm like, not so much. I really don't like those. It doesn't make that pinwheel that's in there really pop out. It's sort of, you see these squares first. So I set that one aside and remade it with a lighter piece that's on the corner there. So I'm a little happier with that one, okay? But when I was doing that one, just so you can see in the video, I explained that you could put this one together if you wanted to with what we call a partial seam. So I did make this unit as one unit. So that's one piece of fabric that I clipped the corner on. And then I sewed this square to that unit. And when I sewed it on, I just sewed it part way. And then I added this one, and then this one, and then that one, so that it eliminates the seam there. Now, there's nothing wrong with having the seams there. It's not like that's forbidden. I just prefer to have fewer seams in my quilt because I do my own quilting. And if you were going to hand quilt, you want to eliminate as many seams as possible because they're not fun to quilt through. But even when I'm quilting on my long arm, I prefer to eliminate as many seams so I don't sew the same fabric back together again. So that's one change that I made there. And when I started these blocks, I took some fabrics with me. I was teaching on a quilting cruise, so I took some blocks with me, and on my days off, my mornings, I went into the sewing room and made a couple blocks. So these were the fabrics that were easy for me to pull and take with me. So I took them, made some blocks. So I will be making at least 18 blocks using this setting. So 8 inches and this style fabric and the setting that's in the book, so that when we get to that point, we can talk about the diagonal set and I can show you how to put it together that way. These are the blocks that I wanted to make for my quilt. We'll talk about that in a second. But when you do the blocks the way that the book has you do them, there's your sashing pieces are here, and it's 2 light and 1 dark. And when I put the first ones up at the very end of the video, you saw I just stuck them on my design wall. And as I was making them, I made a few sashing pieces. And I realized that my sashing pieces really needed a little bit more interest to them. They were all very bland, like this. So they were just sort of, there wasn't even a darker tan. It was like this, just sort of blah. So I went through my stash again and pulled out some more prints, some more decorative things that are in there, some more geometrics to go into the lighter pieces, so that when I put this all together, I'll have some contrast here between my background and my sashing pieces, because this is the way the book has it done: 2 lights and 1 dark. And then you need a 9 patch that's right here. Now my pieces that are going in between here, I'm doing them all in black just because I think it'll be fun. In the book, they're all done in different colors, so you don't have to do them all in black the way I'm doing it. I've just set aside black, and naturally I'll have enough black, I'll have enough interest. So I went out and went shopping this week and bought some more black fabrics. So I need blacks with kind of some fun things in them, so that they're as interesting as this piece is on either side. So that's what I have going on right here. One more block before we talk about the batik ones is this tree block. I have to be really honest with you. I am not a fan of sampler quilts. Given a choice, I would not make a sampler quilt. I'm doing this because this group wanted to do it. And of all the sampler quilts I've seen, I do happen to think this is probably the prettiest one that there is. So I'm willing to do it. But normally my style is different blocks, but in some kind of an organized geometric, not just every block is different the way a sampler quilt is normally done. So the reason I don't usually like sampler quilts is because balancing the blocks to me visually is a challenge, because if they're not all really intricate blocks, or they're not all real basic blocks, then my eye tends to go to the ones that don't match the others. So that's a personal thing. There is nothing wrong with this quilt. I'm not disparaging the way that Barbara Brackman put it together, but I'm also giving you permission to change the blocks if you want, because I really don't like that tree. This is the tree the way it is in the book, and if you look at the tree, it's an easy tree to make. And this is the way the trunk is done in the book. So this seam matches that seam. So you have a nice intersection right there. As I said in the video, I think this tree trunk is a little heavy duty for what we've got going on in the tree here. So I tried to lighten mine up a little bit and change it a little bit, but honestly, I was not happy with it. I do not like this tree. So I went right to the source. Barbara Brackman is pretty much the expert. She's written the Bible on quilt blocks. So that's what this is. This is Barbara Brackman's Encyclopedia of Pieced Quilt Patterns. And this is the 3rd edition, I think. And it has images of every block you can possibly imagine. And she has them categorized. Barbara and I don't think alike as far as categorized things go, because what I think should be in one category, she usually has in a different category. But they're all in here. You can look them up by name, multiple names. This is the book that you saw when we were talking about this block here, Lincoln's Platform, and you might know it by another name. So what I did was I went to the tree section. So see the tree section in her book here? There, that's just one page. The problem with the tree is it usually has a middle to it. That's just one of the pages. Here's more tree, and there are more trees blocks in here. So there's usually has to have a center to it because of the way that it's on point. So you need the number of blocks that go across here is usually odd. So this having 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4 was a little unique. And this one easily makes into an 8-inch block. But I thought it could be more interesting. So it's my quilt. I'm going to make it the way I want. So I played around with some of her other ones, and this is now my tree block. All I did basically was I took the squares, so we're still 1, 2, 3, 4, but I made them into half square triangles. So there's half square triangles in these 4 and these 4, and then on either side here, I left these 2 squares solid. So it worked for me. This is the 4.5-inch square that I said you could clip the corners on. I clipped these with 3-inch corners. So this triangle right here was a 3-inch square, and so it shortened it up a little. 2-inch goes pretty skinny. I was afraid it might be too skinny. So I went with 3-inch and then clipped it here and clipped it here and put it back together again. Then on many, many, many of Barbara's book blocks in the book, they have a triangle. They clip the bottom this way with another triangle because it kind of plants the tree and gives it more of a tree look, okay? I considered flipping these around so that the green was on this side and the tan was on that side, but because I have light sashing on all of my outside edges, when this gets put into here, I wanted the darkest edge on the outside so that when it goes up against there, you'll have maximum contrast. So from the time I made the video and I put these up on my design wall and I was working on another project, I kept looking at that tree thinking, I really don't like that tree. So it's my quilt. I changed it. So if there's something that you prefer, you go, don't like that, change it. Make it your own. So I changed this one and made these lighter, and I made a different tree to go here. So once I had those done, I decided to work on the batik version that is really the quilt that I intended to make to begin with. So it's going to be scrappy as well. And the way I'm planning that quilt is I have this piece of fabric. So this is a custom batik that I've had for years, that I had done when I had my store in Pennsylvania. And it has lots of purple in it, lots of orange in it. It's got some kind of fun, interesting colors to it. And I want this to be, I'm thinking, most likely the outside border, but I also wanted it to be the sashing pieces. So you can see here, I reversed my sashing pieces so that I have 2 darks and 1 light, because I want more of this fabric in the quilt, because that's really what I was going for. So I reversed my sashing pieces, and that means I need more light in my blocks. If I were to have this tree in that block, then I would reverse those for sure so that the light triangles were on the outside edge. So they would be up against my dark sashing. Now, when I made the blocks, because there's so much more light in it, so this block up here, this is block number 1, and it has sort of a stripe in this part of it, but you can see that my backgrounds here are much, much lighter than they are in this right here. So see, these two blocks are those two blocks. So it's a much lighter look to it. This block, which was the number 2 block here, okay, this one, I matched these two colors, and I did it by clipping the corners and making a trapezoid, where on this version of it, they're not matched. And that's because in the book, as I pointed out in the video, sometimes the person who made the block did a different layout than what the original illustration is. And so feel free to do whatever you would like, but these two blocks don't look anything alike. They are exactly the same, except that this and this match here, and then my pinwheel's a different color. But if you look at the book illustration, you'll see it's still the same piece. But then I have 3 different backgrounds here instead of the green and the lighter. So it's a very different look. This block is pretty much the same. And then this block, I actually like this pinwheel the best because it really shows the pinwheel, and it's all background around there, and it doesn't have, still has these squares, but they blend right into the background. So that's the start of my batik version of it. I haven't quite decided yet. These are actually purple and my main fabric. I haven't decided if I'm going to put the purple ones in there or if I'm going to make them white. I think the white might put too much white into it and make it look disconnected. But I'll try that, and if I decide I'm going to go that way, I'll show that to you too. So those are the changes, the simple things that I've done differently with mine, so that you can see that if you want to make changes to yours, you can feel free to make changes to yours as well. So the format that we're going to use will be exactly what happened today. The first Sunday of the month, you will see the upload of the video, and it will tell you what blocks we're doing for that month, and then you'll have all month to get them done.